Welcome to Simple Photopea Projects, and I'm your host, instructor Sean Glumace. And this is our very first project with Photopea. And if you've come over from Photoshop or you're watching from other videos, we're going to go through and create a simple nameplate and walk through a few of the tools that you really need to know and the basics of just the layout of the program, and getting into some of the details as well, like what file sizes and all the little things that really bring together a photo editing program. So we're going to start off with a brand new document. So we're going to go up under File, and we're going to do New. And we'll call this our nameplate. Now for our width and our height, we're going to work in inches. And our width on this is going to be 8 inches. And our height is going to be 3 inches. DPI on this, we're going to go to 300. And there's a reason for this. In the end, this would be a printed project. And in printing, we do 300 DPI, or pixels per square inch, so dots per square inch. So if we're going to send this to a printer or print it off our color printer, and we want a high resolution image, we're going to work at 300 DPI. If we were working on the web, we would do 72. And in later videos, we use some different DPIs just to keep file sizes down. But for this one, we're going to do 300. The background's going to be white because we really want to have a blank canvas to work with here. So I love the white canvas. So we're going to hit Create. And this gives us our nice blank open area to work with. And if we look under Layers, our first area that I'm really going to pull up here is Layers. We're going to be coming back to this over and over again. The other tools we're going to use today are our Move tool, or V on the keyboard, and our Type tool as well. We're also going to be using our Rectangle tool and our Ellipse tool. So those are the key tools, and we're going to be working with our fill colors, and we're going to be working with our layer effects through this. It's still going to be a very simple project. This video may end up being 30, 40, even 50 minutes long, and that's because I need to talk about the tools we're working with. If I was just going to sit down and do this, I could probably get through this in about 4 or 5 minutes. We're not going to have a lot here. We're only going to have 4 or 5 objects that we're working with, but all these things come together, and that's what I really want to emphasize here. Is first of all, there's a lot going on here. Even though Photopea is a very simple layout, it mimics Photoshop. And Photoshop is a very deep and dense program. There's so much we could do in it. And so there's still a lot of things we could do here. And I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I want you to start off and be creative. And this is a tool. This is like a paintbrush or a pen. And I think a lot of people get intimidated by the computer. And if I had to tomorrow, if I didn't have the computer, I could still do this type of work. Now, mind you, it wouldn't be as polished. It would take a lot more time. But everything we do here, it could be done by hand. I mean, there are a few things we can't. But I still work by hand. I still sketch. I still have books. I was trained that way. I was trained as a graphic designer and as an artist with paint and with stripping film and using glue and a waxer and setting type by hand. And I learned to letter by hand. It's something I still do. But the computer makes the process much quicker and easier for me. But it's still just a tool. It's no different than an X-Acto knife or a pencil or a pen. And so I don't want you to be intimidated by this. So let's get started here. We have our canvas, and there's a few things we want to do. So if we go up under View, the first thing is I want to add some guides. And we want to turn on the rulers first. So if your rulers aren't on, do View, Rulers. And we get our rulers here. I want to change this over. So if you right click, and I will be right clicking a lot, Photopea, some of the things we have to right click. That's also control click on the Macintosh or on your laptop. But right click, I will, and I'll say it when I do it. So I'm going to right click inside the ruler. I'm going to go to inches. So we're working in inches. If you work in millimeters in the metric system, go for it. I'm just going with what we work with here in North America, in the United States here. So inches, and I'm going to come up and do View. And this time I'm going to add guides. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a guide. And we want to do horizontal and vertical. So I want to set up guides that show me the center of this layout. And so my horizontal guide, which is going to be coming from here, is at 1.5. So half of my 3 inches. Take the difference there. And then vertical will be at 4. And you'll see it gives us a preview. I'm just clicking in here so they come up. So that's the center point. And that's important for me. Because now I know this is broken up into 4 areas, 4 quadrants. And I can start doing my layout. So we have our guides in place. Next thing we're going to do is I need to draw a box with color in it. So I'm going to select my rectangle. We're going to leave the background white. It's locked. You'll notice there's a little lock over here. So we're going to leave that alone. I'm going to select a fill color. Now there's not a lot of color to choose from here. There's color, there's patterns, there's a gradient. And I'm just going to start with a blue, just to keep it simple here. We'll get our crosshair, and I'm not going to start drawing my box right inside. I'm going to go out a little bit and give myself a bleed. Bleed is past trim. So what we're looking at right now, the whole white area, right where the black meets right here, that's the trim. So if we were cutting the paper, that's the actual size. So I want my artwork to bleed past the trim. And we get ourselves our first shape. Now if I want to change the color under my layer palette, I can double click on the thumbnail. And we get our properties, we get our fill and our info on it. And sorry, I just did a Photoshop thing, so it's for me sometimes it's a little tough. If you double click in Photoshop, it'll pull up and we can change the color. If you click on it, we can change the color up here. So we're going to stick with the blue, just to keep this simple. If you want to close these, you can change it. So I'm happy with the blue right now. Next thing we're going to do is draw another rectangle on top of this. So I'll grab my rectangle tool, and we want to make it a different color. So I'm going to pick green. But if you notice what just happened, it changed the color of the existing one because I had it selected. So let me put it back. Then I'm going to grab my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw my rectangle. Right in the middle here. Now I got 2 shapes with the exact same color. My shape number 2 is selected. Now if I come up and change the fill, we get a different color. Now before we go any farther, I want to talk about layers. We have 2, actually we have 3 with the background. We have a shape 1 and shape 2. Now with shape 1, I'm going to double click on the name, and we'll call this, we'll call it blue background. I can type. That's what it is. It's my blue background. And it's important to have that named. And we're going to call this one middle rectangle. Because this is like a sandwich. In Photoshop and Photopea, we're working in layers. And so these layers, if we looked at a sandwich sideways, we have bread, and then we have our meat or our cheese or whatever's inside. And each of those things are an object. We can move those around. We can apply things to those. And that's really the power of Photoshop or Illustrator in InDesign, is we can layer objects. We can move them around. We can apply things to them. And that allows us to do so much more than if this was just a flat image. We wouldn't be able to pull things out. We wouldn't be able to give depth of field. And right now we have 2 objects one sitting on top of the other. So now we want to start doing something with these objects. And you'll notice one thing I did here is when I drew this rectangle, I pretty much made a margin around here, and it's pretty spot on. You know, I can align it right on center with my move tool. It'll snap too. You see how the red lines appear? So now I have pretty much a straight margin. I mean, I can play with it a little if I wanted to, but I'm pretty happy with that. And we may come back and play with it later. You can also do alignment when you have something. You can center. You can select two things and center a line, but I'm happy with it. So I'm going to select the blue background and come down under the EFF, the layer style. And we're going to apply a stroke. So under our layer styles, we get the stroke, we get our size, and we have our color. And right now it's on the outside. I'm going to do it on the inside. And let's make it about, I don't know, 15 or 14. And I'm not here to say it has to be a certain number, so play with it. So we have it on the inside. Let's make it white. So I clicked on the little color picker, and we made it white. We'll hit OK. Whoops. And I don't know why we're not getting a white stroke on this. So let me check something real quick. Interesting. The effect is there. So let's just move on and see what else is happening here. And I'm glad this just happened. Maybe you caught it. I just caught it. Where did I apply the stroke? If we look at the layer, and I'm glad this happened, and I want to emphasize something here. I'm going to make mistakes. I do lots of these videos, and I make mistakes. I just did a video a little earlier today that was very similar to this in Photoshop, and I stumbled around a few times. You're going to stumble around a lot. So even the best of us, if we plan this perfectly, we can't always do it right. So I screwed up here. Look at where I placed the effect on the blue background. The stroke's way out here. We can't see it. So if I double click on the effects, I can turn the stroke off. We're not going to see it anyway, and I'll hit OK. I'm just going to kind of leave that. We're going to come back and do some stuff to that here in a minute. And if I go to my middle rectangle now and select it, I did not select it earlier. And then I do the effect and do the stroke. Hey, there it is. So that was my mistake. I messed it up. I always say, my fault, we'll fix it. So we fixed it. So now when I make these changes, we can actually see them happen. And we're going to do a white stroke, around 20 points. That looks good. We can change the opacity if you want to. I'm going to leave it. And there are blend modes and position. We always want to do inside. Outside, you can see we get these nice kind of little rounded corners. I prefer inside anyway because we're going to add a drop shadow. Well, what if I want a double line? I want two lines. I want white and I want another color. Well, I can come over and click the plus sign. And it added another stroke. Now the two strokes are the same. 20 pixels on the inside, so you can't see them. Let's change the color of the new stroke. And we'll go with a blue here, kind of a darker. And you can see what happened. That blue stroke got a little bit of a problem. And what happened? Well, I selected the wrong stroke. If I rearrange them, and this is why I wanted to do this, is see these little arrows? I can move those around. So you can see we have a white stroke on top and a blue stroke on the bottom. If I make this larger, it's now on the inside. And I can keep adding strokes to this. If I move this down, click, well, the white goes behind. Now the blue's in front. So if you only want one stroke, that's fine. And we'll do a double stroke again here in a minute. But we want to add a drop shadow now. So I just turned it on. You can see the drop shadow. But nothing changed here. And I see this happen a lot with layers and layer styles. Where's all my settings? Well, the stroke is still selected. You need to click on drop shadow. Now the angle's way off. Let's set that to about 120 degrees. Now we have a nice drop shadow. The distance, it's a little too much. Let's bring it in a little. Around 12 or 15. And we even bring the spread out a little too. And size, around 20. We got a nice drop shadow now. So it adds depth, right? This is popping. I like what I did here. I got a white, I got 2 strokes. Even if you just have one, that's fine. Try the 2. But I want to add something here. So let's start with a pattern. Let's see what patterns we have. Oh, there we go. I turned it on and we got yellow. But if you click on pattern here, it's going to load some patterns. You can load other ones as well, but there's not a lot to work with here, but let's pick something. I kind of like that one. I like it. So let's try putting a gradient overlay on top of it. Oh, where'd it go? It disappeared. Well, that's not a bad thing. Let's pick another gradient here. And it's still gone. But if we change the opacity on the gradient, and I have the gradient selected, we change that opacity. Look what starts happening. It starts showing through, but the gradient's still there. So let's try a different gradient in here. Do any of these work? I don't know. You try. There we go. I like that one, which is just black to white. Looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. And the reason I'm just clicking on things and playing is I want you to play. I need you to play. That's how you learn. If you just sit here and do what I do step by step, you're going to end up with just a photocopy of my stuff. It won't probably look exactly like the original. And that's what we're not grading you on that either. When I grade and I run a classroom, I want to see creativity. This is, like I said earlier, a tool. I need you to have happy accidents. And, if you ever watch Bob Ross, the painter, he talks about that. He makes a mistake. Well, it's part of it. No one ever needs to know. It's these just oops, and it works. Sometimes I'll click on something looking for a color, and I find another color I like. Or I find a pattern I like. Or it works. And I have this kind of in my head. I may sketch it out on paper, but this is where I play. This is my sandbox. This is where I bring things together. And you can tell I get real excited about these things. This is my passion. But if you don't have any passion for this, it's just a tool that you sit here and go, okay, I pumped it out and I'm done with it. So I want you to play. And look at all these settings, all these things you can touch and move and tweak and try different things with. So that's why I do that. And if you're going to watch any of my other videos, I do the same thing in those too. So don't feel like, oh, I got to do exactly what he's doing. Try different stuff. Turn in something. I want to see it. I want to see what you've created. Your teacher wants to see it. We all do. So I like what I did here. So lots of check boxes on. We have a double stroke on the inside, 2 different colors, 2 different sizes. Then we have a gradient overlay at 28% opacity. I found a pattern that I like, and I put a drop shadow. And I hit OK, and look what we got. That's a lot different than what we started with. If I come in here under my layers and turn off the eyeball and effects, we started with a gray box. We have 2 things in this Photoshop document. We have 2 boxes. But look what happens when we apply those layer effects. I don't want to say it's magic, but it almost is. When you show other people, you go, look at what I'm doing. They're like, wow, that's great. When you start looking at other designs and other layouts, this is how it's put together. That's what all these tools come together to do, is use your imagination to put it together. So let's do something with this blue background. I'm going to go down to the EFF, Layer Effects, and let's do a pattern overlay. I don't want to use the same pattern, so let's see what else we got. I'm going to go with the swirls. I don't have a lot to choose from. We can bring more in, but We don't have any PAT files or anything like that, so I'm going to leave it how it is. I mean, I could scale it up, make it a little bigger. I can make them smaller. I'm going to go a little bigger. You can even change the axis. Now, it doesn't change much here, but let's leave that, and let's do the gradient overlay again. And it brought up the same, it remembered the one we used, which is nice because we don't have to remember, oh, how far or what opacity it was. I'm going to bring the opacity a little higher here. Yeah, I like that. I like how the yellow, look how dark it is at the bottom. I just like that. That works. See how the colors work here? They complement each other. This nice dark gradient going light to dark with the drop shadow now is working together. So all we did was we turned on 2 layer styles here, gradient overlay and pattern overlay. I made an adjustment on the gradient overlay on the opacity. You know, I'm just kind of playing with it until I found something. And I went with a pattern and scaled it up a little bit. I like it. It works. And look at the difference from just a few minutes ago, from effects to this. Looks good to me. So, I want to have a circle in the middle now. I want to have a circle. I'm going to put type over that circle. I'm going to put my name right in the middle of this. So we need to get a circle in here. I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. And if I draw a circle right from here, look what happens. I get an oval. This is not a circle. It's kind of like, oh, I want a circle. Is this a circle? Well, if you hold down the shift key, it will constrain the circle. But it's not in the middle. If you hold down the Alt key at the same time, now we got a circle. And I'm going to draw it out. I'm going to overlap it a little bit here. I'm going to let go of my mouse. Where's my circle? Look at where the circle ended up. It's between the two. It's like a sandwich. So if I select and hold and drag up my layer, boom. So let's call it circle. So we can move these layers around. I go, oh, you know, I want my blue background above the other. Oh, no, put it back. Maybe that works. Nope, doesn't. Maybe the circle needs to go down here. Nope. So you can move these things around. Okay. Now we have our circle. I'm going to go down and hit the EF. Let's do a stroke. Hey, look at that. Maybe we'll make that white. Kind of works, yeah. I like it. 30 point. Opacity, yeah, all good. You know, maybe we bring the opacity down on this. Ooh, how about that? Something different. But I'm going to add another stroke. Remember what happened before? They're out of order, just like over here. So if I move it, there's my opacity. A little too big, huh? Yeah, we'll do that on the outside. I'm going to go back to the other stroke. And let's make this, oh, I don't know. I'll go kind of a darker blue here or something. Just a dark color. And the reason I'm doing that is I still have the opacity on, so it's showing through. I like that. Maybe bring the size up a little more. Yeah, there we go. That works for me. The opacity shows through the background, but not the outside one. And let's put a drop shadow on it. It remembered the drop shadow settings. I like it. Now, that color ain't going to work, right? So we could do a color overlay and drop a color into here. And I can change that color to, you know, something else here, gray, something dark, if I wanted to. And I can add a pattern overlay. Oh, nothing happened. Well, the color overlay is 100% opacity, so it's not letting the pattern show through. But if I change the opacity some, I get that in there. And I like that. A little something different. This is why I said earlier, I play. I'm happy with this. Like, ooh, this is neat. I can even add a third stroke. I don't know if it would work, though, with the transparency here. But if it was solid, I can add a third stroke into there. And it would just keep going. And a fourth and a fifth. I mean, you can keep going on this if you want to. You can even do multiple color overlays and mix colors. In future videos, we're going to go through like the bevel and emboss and these things. I'm keeping it pretty simple right now. So even if this is just a solid color for you, that's great. I'm going to go with what I got. Hit OK. And we now have our circle, our middle rectangle, and blue background. Well, we need type. So I'm going to grab my type tool. Now, when you grab your type tool, we get our options up here at the top. And our very first font we need to pick is something close to... you have all the same fonts I do here, so we need to find something that, I don't know, just fits me. So, what about Great Lakes? NF. We'll try that. So this is the font, the family. This is the face. So there's only one. Sometimes fonts will have italic and bold italic. This font only has that, and it looks like it's a slab serif font. What that means is it's just a heavy font, like Impact and some of the others. Now the size is a little small for me, so let's go up to about 60. Otherwise, we're going to end up with really small type. And I want to align on center. The type is black right now, but we're going to leave that. And I'm going to come over. And click once. Now, if you notice, I want to talk about what just happened. So when I clicked and I typed, it actually put it inside of the circle. It's not on the same layer, but it's within it. And that's not what I wanted. So I have to delete this layer, and you can right click and delete, or down at the bottom there's a little trash can. So you gotta learn how to delete. That's how we get rid of stuff. So I'm gonna click again, and I'm gonna draw a text box, and I'm gonna type out my name. So I dragged and drew a text box, typed my name, and I grabbed the move tool. Now I can move it, and what's great about this is hold down the shift key on the keyboard, grab one edge, and I can blow it up. Now, the font itself. If you triple click on this font with the type tool, you can change it. Or you can come over here under character and change it here as well. I'm just going to stay up here. Here's other fonts. You know, scroll through, try some different things. Yeah, that's not going to work. I'm just looking for something that looks pretty good here. Ooh, how about this one? Hollywood. A little too big. So I want you to play with the fonts, see what works, what doesn't, you know, if this works. I'm going to stick with Great Lake. So I'm just going to go back to what I had. And one other thing is Control Z. Yeah, I haven't done it that much yet, but Control Z or step backwards is super important. If you make a mistake, Control Z, go backwards. It's Command Z too on the Mac. So knowing that is going to save you a lot of headache down the road. So I have my text. Well, guess what we're going to do? Layer effects. So let's put a stroke on this thing. Ooh, boy, that did not work, huh? Well, first of all, the size is way too big. We need a position on the outside on text. And the opacity is a mess. So I fixed that, made the size 20 pixels, position outside, opacity 100, and let's go grab white. And that looks pretty good. Let's try the drop shadow. We're going to have to make it farther now. It's being blocked by the stroke, so we got to drag out the distance. And let's do something with the overlay. So if I do a gradient overlay, let's try the pattern. Whoa, I think that's a little too much. Let's try a different pattern. I'm going to go with that one again. But this time, I'm going to do a color overlay. And let's grab, oh, I don't know. Let's just grab kind of a burgundy in here. That looks decent. This font's a little hard to read, but I'm okay with it. We'll leave it as is. And the pattern overlay, it's there. It's not like popping, but it's in there. What I think we need is, we need one more stroke. And I like the double stroke. I think we need it in here as well. So we've got the drop shadow on. We have the pattern overlay. We have a color overlay that's a little darker burgundy. Let's add another stroke. And this time, let's make this black. And yeah, well, like I said, I think it's a little too much, but let's see when we move it up. Nope. Let's bring that back down. So playing is important, as you can see. You can mess things up. There we go. And I like that better. Not perfect. And I'm going to go straight color here. Ooh, that's way too much, huh? Maybe lighter? Ah, there we go. A little bit better definition. This font's a little tough to read, but that's fine. I can sit here and play with it. Bring this down. And you can see where the playing, I start getting a little more in here than we normally do. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that. So, is it perfect? No, but I can play more, and that's what I want you to do. So, I really want to show you something, though, before we do one last thing with the type. We have 4 objects. Simply put, 4 simple run-of-the-mill objects here. If we turn off these effects, this is all this layout is. But once we turn these on, all of a sudden, we get a much different image. So while this is a kind of a long video, it's still just a simple set of steps that allow you to be creative with each layer and then bring things together. As you learn more about color theory, you learn more about typography, you learn more about graphic design, you'll be able to start taking those things and putting it together. I'll also tell you, if your gut says something's wrong, it's probably wrong. So always think about, if you're looking and say those colors don't work together, that type isn't right. Like right now, the types, that's kind of my feeling on it. I'd have to play a little more, but I don't want to spend another 20 minutes just playing with type here. I want you to do that. So you can change the type and play with it. So we're in good shape. One last little thing we want to do before we save this and export it is we have a thing called the warp tool. And if you take your type tool and triple click on the type and go up under warp, you can do an arc. Whoops. went off a little bit there. You can play with this, and you know, there's different ones in here. Arc lower, arc this. Play with it. See what you get. Like, there we go. I kind of like that. Kind of stretched it out and arced it a little bit. Lower arc. You can do vertical. I want you to play and come up with something. Like, there we go. I like that. It's a vertical, so if it's horizontal, it's pushing it all over the place. But on vertical, I like that. So I'm going to hit OK. And it kind of tweaked it. So now I'll scale it down using my move tool and my shift key. Just make it a little smaller. I always want to make sure I have the same amount of space here and the same amount of space here. Everything should line up. And see how that lines up with the red lines right on that guideline we put in? Comes together real well. As I said, this font, you know, it's bugging me, to be very honest. Let's see if there's anything else we can mess up with. Like, oh yeah, that's not working. I think we leave well enough alone here. And that looks decent. But I want you to play with this. I want you to try different things, try different type. You know, maybe one thing I'm looking at here is maybe we get rid of one of the strokes. Maybe just keep the black and make that smaller. That works a little bit better. And then maybe if we turn the other one on, So it's worth playing with. It is, spend a little bit of time. You know, once you're done, you go, oh, maybe this will work, maybe this won't. You know, maybe it's the color. Maybe we need to go just a little bit lighter or a little bit darker. It doesn't have to be as dark. But I want you to try something different here. Use the warp tool on the text. Use the type. Use the warp. And use all the layer effects that you want to try. But keep it simple. 4 things. We bring it together. So now let's finish this up. We're going to do File, Save as PSD. This will download it to your Downloads folder. So we have our PSD file. And then we need to Export As, and we're going to do a JPEG. So there's different file formats that we can go to. For you to turn this in if it's part of a course or you just want to save it to use somewhere else, we're going to save it as a JPEG. We can make PDFs and all that, but JPEG is what we're looking at here. And it's already set, the height, everything else. And actually, this looks pretty decent. You know, let's bring the quality up to 80. That'll make it a little bit better. We don't want to have a huge file size either, no reason to. And, you know, this looks good. Actually, it looks a little bit better at this level than over here. So I will save it. And we now have a JPEG saved to your desktop, or I'm sorry, your Downloads folder. So that's it for the first project. It's not, like I said, not a very complex one. We could do this very quickly if you knew the tools. We covered a lot of basic tools. We covered how to save a file, how to create one, how to do guidelines, how to bring those in, how we use layer effects, how we move a little bit of type. And so in the next videos, we'll keep adding to this. We'll get into layer masks. We'll get into all kinds of other things that you'll use to even add more to your layouts and designs. So we want to thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.